everyone, and welcome back to Western Flavors. In our last quiet, reflective episode, Amy finally opened up to Ty about the weight she'd been carrying. At Price Ranch, she revealed that 2025 had been a year of impossible extremes, the joy of Ty's miraculous return balanced against the devastating losses of Jack and Tim. Amy's acceptance that happiness and sorrow are intertwined unsettled Ty, who saw his wife resign to suffering as the price of joy. But through their emotional conversation, they found hope. Ty promised Amy they would be okay, that he'd help carry the weight when it became too heavy, that together they could survive whatever came next. And Amy, exhausted and grieving but choosing to trust, simply nodded her acceptance of his promise. If you're enjoying this season, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Quick note before we jump in, I've been using NordVPN and NordPass, and they've been game changers for my online security. NordVPN encrypts your connection so no one can track what you're doing online, and NordPass securely manages all your passwords so you don't have to remember dozens of them. If you subscribe through my link in the description, you'll get a huge discount, up to 73% off on a 2-year plan for NordVPN and 53% off on NordPass. Plus, I'll earn a small commission from your purchase, which really helps support Western Flavors. Alright, let's get into it. Today's episode picks up immediately after that conversation. As they walk back from Price Ranch, Ty realizes something important. Amy needs more than promises. She needs joy. She needs a break from grief and loss and the weight of holding everyone else together. She needs to remember what it feels like to be happy without waiting for the cost. And Ty, determined to give his wife even a few hours of normalcy and romance, hatches what he thinks is the perfect plan. Spoiler alert, it's not. The walk back from Price Ranch to where they'd left Ty's truck was quiet and contemplative. The stars overhead were brilliant in the clear. Alberta night, and Amy walked close to Ty, her hand in his, feeling lighter than she had in days. The conversation had helped. Getting everything out, admitting her fears, accepting Ty's comfort, it had released some of the pressure that had been building since Tim's death. She wasn't fixed. The grief was still there, the exhaustion still present, the fear still lurking, but she felt less alone in it, less like she had to carry everything by herself. Ty was quiet beside her, but his mind was racing. He'd meant everything he'd said at Price Ranch, that they'd be okay, that he'd help carry her burdens, that together they could survive anything. But as they walked through the darkness, he realized that promises weren't enough. Amy needed tangible proof that life could still hold joy, that happiness didn't always have to be balanced by sorrow, that sometimes good things could just be good without waiting for the cost. She needed a break, a few hours away from grief and responsibility and the weight of being strong for everyone else. She needed to remember what it felt like to just be Amy, not Amy the grieving daughter, not Amy the supportive sister, not Amy the strong one everyone leaned on. Just Amy, his wife, the woman he loved more than anything. And suddenly Ty knew exactly what he needed to do. He needed to take her somewhere special, somewhere that would remind her that romance and joy and normalcy still existed in the world. Somewhere that had nothing to do with death or loss or family drama. A date, that's what they needed. A real, proper date like they used to have before Nathan, before the fire, before everything fell apart. When was the last time they'd gone on an actual date? Not grabbing takeout in their cramped flat? Not eating in exhausted silence after long days of dealing with construction and legal battles? But a real date where they dressed up and went somewhere nice and just enjoyed being together. They reached his truck and drove back toward the cabin in comfortable silence, Amy leaning against his shoulder, exhausted but peaceful. When they arrived, Amy went inside to check on Lindy, who was already asleep, being watched by Katie. Ty stayed outside in the truck, pulling out his phone with growing excitement. This was it. This was what Amy needed. This was how he could actually help instead of just making promises. He opened a search engine and typed fancy restaurants near Calgary, scrolling through results with increasing focus. He wanted somewhere special, somewhere romantic, somewhere completely different from their everyday lives of construction sites and temporary housing and funeral arrangements, somewhere that would make Amy feel valued and cherished and special. The problem was, most of the high-end Calgary restaurants were booked solid. He clicked through website after website, finding the same message, no availability for the next 3 weeks. Amy couldn't wait 3 weeks. She needed something now. Tonight, ideally. Before the grief settled back in, before she had time to talk herself out of it or decide someone else needed her more. Ty kept scrolling, going deeper into the search results, past the well-known establishments to the more obscure options. And that's when he found it. The Sterling Estate restaurant proclaimed the website in elegant script, exclusive fine dining experience on the outskirts of Calgary, limited seating, intimate atmosphere, reservations available. The photos were stunning, an elegant building with warm lighting glowing from tall windows, white tablecloths and fine china, beautifully plated dishes that looked like art, couples dining in what appeared to be a sophisticated, romantic setting. The testimonials raved about the hidden gem quality of the place, the unforgettable experience, the perfect romantic evening. This was perfect. This was exactly what Amy needed. And the best part? When Ty clicked through to the reservation system, there was availability for tonight, in just a few hours. It was like fate. Like the universe was finally giving them something good after all the terrible. The price made Ty wince slightly, significantly more than he'd normally spend on a single meal, but Amy was worth it. Their marriage was worth it. Giving his wife a few hours of joy and normalcy after everything she'd been through was worth any amount of money. He entered his credit card information without hesitation and completed the booking, reservation for two at the Sterling Estate restaurant. 8 o'clock. That gave him about 2 hours to coordinate everything and get Amy ready without revealing the surprise. Now he just needed to make sure the family was covered, so Amy wouldn't worry about everyone else needing her. Ty's first call was to Lisa. She'd been such a steady presence through everything, taking care of Jessica, supporting the family, being the voice of experience and wisdom. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm but tired. Ty, is everything okay?
Yeah, everything's fine. I'm actually calling to ask a favor. A big one.
Of course. What do you need?
I want to take Amy out tonight. To Calgary. To a nice restaurant. She needs a break, Lisa. She needs to get away from everything and just breathe. Just be herself for a few hours without everyone needing her to be strong.
There was a pause, and Ty could hear the smile in Lisa's voice when she responded. That's a wonderful idea, Ty. Truly wonderful. What do you need from me?
Could you check on Jessica tonight? Make sure she's okay? I know you've been staying with her, but with Amy and me both gone, I just want to make sure she's not alone with her grief. You understand what she's going through better than anyone. One grieving widow to another.
Of course. I was planning to stay with her again tonight anyway. She's doing a bit better today, still devastated, but starting to process. We've been looking through old photos of Tim, talking about the good memories. It's helping her remember him as more than just the man who died. I'll make sure she's taken care of. You focus on Amy. She's been holding everyone else up since Tim died. It's time someone held her up.
Thank you, Lisa. Really, this means everything.
Ty, can I say something?
Of course.
What you're doing, taking care of Amy, making sure she has moments of joy even in the midst of grief. That's what Jack used to do for me. After my first husband died, after losing people I loved, Jack always found ways to remind me that life still had beautiful moments worth experiencing. You're doing the same for Amy. That's what real love looks like. I'm proud of you. Ty felt his throat tighten with emotion.
I just want her to be happy, even if it's just for a few hours.
Then go make her happy. We'll take care of everything here. Ty's next call was to Georgie, who answered with her characteristic efficiency. Ty, what's up?
I need another favor. Can you and Katie watch Lindy tonight? Amy and I need to get away for a few hours.
Absolutely. Where are you taking her?
There's this fancy restaurant on the outskirts of Calgary. I found it online and it looks perfect. I want to surprise her. She needs something good, Georgie. Something that isn't about grief or loss or holding everyone else together.
That's exactly what she needs. Katie and I have Lindy covered. She's already asleep anyway. We'll make sure she stays that way. And I'll check on Lou too. Make sure she's doing okay without Amy there to support her. Lou's been better since the funeral, but she still has moments where the guilt hits her hard. I'll make sure she's not alone if that happens.
You're the best. Thank you.
Ty, this is really thoughtful. Amy's lucky to have you.
I'm the lucky one. She's been through so much. I just want to give her something good.
Then go do it. We've got everything covered here. Take your time, don't rush back. Let Amy have a full evening of not worrying about anyone else. After hanging up, Ty sat in the truck for a moment, feeling the pieces fall into place. Lisa would care for Jessica. Katie and Georgie would watch Lindy and check on Lou. The reservation was made. Everything was arranged. All he needed to do now was surprise Amy and get her in the truck before she could ask too many questions or try to back out, because someone needed her. He went inside the cabin where Amy was sitting on the couch, looking exhausted but more peaceful than she had in days. She looked up when he entered, her expression soft.
Lindy's asleep. Katie said she's been good all evening. No nightmares tonight, thank God.
Good. Amy, I need you to do something for me.
What?
Trust me. Completely. And don't ask questions.
Amy raised an eyebrow, suddenly more alert, curiosity replacing some of the exhaustion in her face.
Okay, what are you planning?
I have a surprise for you. But you have to let me do this my way. Which means you're going to let me blindfold you.
Blindfold me? Tie? What?
No questions. Remember? You said you'd trust me?
Amy studied his face for a moment, seeing the excitement and determination there, seeing how much this meant to him, and finally, she smiled. The first real smile Ty had seen on her face in days.
Okay, I trust you. But if this turns out to be some weird surprise party or something, I'm going to be very upset.
No party. I promise. This is just for us.
Just for us?
Just for us. Now go change into something nice. That dress you wore to Lou's charity event last year. Do you still have it?
I think so. It survived the fire because it was at the cleaners. Why?
Because you're going to wear it tonight. And I'm going to change into something presentable. And then we're going on an adventure.
An adventure?
An adventure.
20 minutes later, Amy was sitting in the passenger seat of Ty's truck, a soft bandana tied gently over her eyes as a blindfold. She'd changed into the dress, a simple but elegant navy blue dress that brought out her eyes and made her look sophisticated and beautiful. Ty had helped her with the zipper, had watched her brush out her hair, had seen the curiosity and anticipation building in her expression as she prepared for this mysterious surprise. He'd changed too, into the nicest shirt and pants he owned. It wasn't much. Most of their belongings had burned in the fire, and they'd been focused on necessities rather than fancy clothes when replacing things. But he looked presentable, date-worthy, good enough to take his wife out for a romantic evening.
You comfortable?
As comfortable as you can be when you have no idea where you're going or what's happening.
There was amusement in her voice, and Ty felt a surge of satisfaction. This was working. She was intrigued, engaged, present in the moment instead of drowning in grief.
If the blindfold's too tight, let me know.
It's fine, although I feel like I'm in some kind of kidnapping scenario.
I promise this is a good kidnapping. The kind with nice food at the end.
Well, that's reassuring.
Ty started the truck and pulled out onto the road, heading toward the highway that would take them toward Calgary. The GPS was already programmed with the address of the Sterling Estate restaurant, showing an estimated drive time of about an hour. Perfect. Long enough to build anticipation, short enough that Amy wouldn't get too restless.
Are you going to give me any hints?
Nope. That would ruin the surprise.
Not even a small hint?
Not even a tiny one.
You're enjoying this way too much.
I absolutely am. You should feel your face right now. You're doing that thing where you scrunch your nose when you're frustrated.
I am not.
You totally are. I can see it even with the blindfold.
Fine. I'm curious. Happy?
Very happy.
And to Ty's delight, Amy settled back in the seat, her hand finding his on the center console, and just existed in the moment. The blindfold meant she couldn't see where they were going, couldn't orient herself, couldn't try to figure out the plan. All she could do was trust Ty and enjoy the ride. They talked as they drove, not about grief or loss or the heavy topics that had dominated their Price Ranch conversation. Instead, they talked about nothing, about everything, about the silly, mundane, wonderful things that made up a life together.
Remember our first real date? Before we were officially dating?
You mean when you took me to that rodeo and we ended up getting caught in that rainstorm?
And we had to hide under that vendor's awning and share a tiny umbrella that didn't actually protect us from anything?
We were completely soaked. I looked like a drowned rat.
You looked beautiful. You always look beautiful.
Smooth talker.
It's true. Even soaking wet with your hair plastered to your face, you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
You're ridiculous.
I'm honest.
She squeezed his hand, and Ty could see her smiling even with the blindfold on. This was good. This was exactly what she needed. Just being together, talking about memories, existing in the moment without the weight of everything else pressing down.
Where are we? Still near Hudson?
We're on the highway. That's all I'm telling you.
Are we going to Calgary?
Maybe, maybe not.
You're the worst at keeping secrets. You know that. You're way too excited.
I'm not too excited. I'm appropriately excited.
You're practically vibrating with excitement. I can feel it through the seat.
Ty laughed, realizing she was right. He was excited. Excited to surprise her, excited to see her reaction when she saw the restaurant, excited to give her an evening that was just about them being together and happy. They continued talking, the conversation flowing easily between comfortable silences and animated exchanges. Amy told him about her plans for training horses once Heartland was rebuilt. Ty talked about some ideas he had for the new barn layout, improvements they could make over the old design. They talked about Lindy starting a new grade next year, about Katie preparing for college applications, about Shane becoming a more permanent part of their lives.
How long have we been driving?
About 45 minutes.
This is quite the mysterious destination.
Good things are worth the drive.
I'm trusting you on that.
But as the drive continued, Ty started noticing things that made his excitement waver slightly. The GPS was taking them past Calgary into more rural areas. The estimated arrival time had crept up from 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. The roads were getting smaller, less populated. This was farther than he'd expected based on the website's description of being on the outskirts of Calgary. This felt more like the middle of nowhere.
How are you doing? Still comfortable?
I'm fine, although I'm starting to wonder if you're actually taking me to a restaurant or if this is an elaborate plan to bury me in a field somewhere.
If I was going to bury you in a field, I definitely would have brought a shovel.
That's not as reassuring as you think it is.
We're almost there. I promise.
But Ty's confidence was starting to crack. The landscape outside was getting more barren. Fewer houses, fewer businesses, just empty fields and darkness. The GPS continued its relentless directions, taking them down progressively smaller roads. This didn't feel right. This didn't feel like they were heading to an exclusive fine dining establishment.
Ty, we've been driving for over an hour. Where exactly is this place?
It's a bit farther than I thought. But exclusive restaurants are sometimes in unexpected locations, right? That's what makes them exclusive.
I guess.
But even Amy's voice held a note of uncertainty now, and Ty felt the first real stirrings of dread in his stomach. What if this was a mistake? What if the website had been wrong about the location? What if you have arrived at your destination, the GPS announced cheerfully. Ty pulled into what could generously be called a parking lot, really just a gravel area beside a building, and as his headlights illuminated the scene before him, his heart sank like a stone. This was nothing like the photos on the website, nothing at all. The building was old and run down, the siding weathered and peeling in places. The sign that presumably said the Sterling Estate restaurant was faded and hanging at an angle, one corner lower than the other. There were maybe 3 other cars in the lot, all of them looking as questionable as the building itself, old trucks and sedans that had seen better days. The surrounding area was barren, no other businesses, no homes nearby, just empty fields stretching into darkness in every direction. The windows of the building were mostly dark, with just a few dim lights visible inside that didn't look inviting, so much as vaguely ominous. The whole place had an abandoned, forgotten quality that screamed health code violation and bad life choices. Ty sat frozen in the driver's seat, staring at the disaster before him, his mind racing through a rapid progression of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, acute embarrassment. This couldn't be right. The website had shown an elegant building with mood lighting and sophisticated atmosphere. This looked like, well, like the kind of place you'd expect to get food poisoning at best, and robbed at worst. He'd been scammed, completely and totally scammed. Some fake website with stolen photos and fabricated reviews had taken his money, quite a bit of his money, and given him an address to what was probably the worst restaurant in Alberta. Or maybe not even a functioning restaurant at all. Maybe just a building where someone was running some kind of scam operation.
Ty, are we here? Can I take the blindfold off?
Oh God, Amy. He had to tell her. Had to admit that his grand romantic surprise, his carefully planned evening to bring joy back into her life, was actually a complete and utter disaster. That instead of treating her to a fancy dinner in an elegant setting, he'd driven her an hour and a half to what looked like the set of a horror movie.
Yeah. You can take it off.
His voice came out strangled, and he saw Amy's head tilt slightly in confusion before she reached up to untie the bandana. She pulled it away from her eyes, blinking as her vision adjusted to the light from the truck's headlights illuminating the scene before them. Ty watched her face as she took it all in. The dilapidated building, the barren surroundings, the sketchy parking lot. The general atmosphere of this was a terrible idea. Her eyes moved slowly from the building to the empty fields to the handful of questionable vehicles to his face, which was currently exhibiting what could only be described as mortified embarrassment mixed with growing horror. Amy's expression was carefully neutral, but Ty could see the wheels turning. She was processing, trying to figure out what to say, how to react, whether to be angry or disappointed, or what. Finally, she raised one eyebrow in that way she had, the way that could convey volumes without a single word, and delivered the line that would haunt Ty forever, her voice perfectly deadpan.
Well, this is quite the place.
Ty looked at his wife, saw the barely suppressed amusement dancing in her eyes despite the obvious disaster of the situation, and couldn't help it. He grinned. Not a happy grin, not a proud grin, but the kind of sheepish, embarrassed grin that said, I know I messed up spectacularly, and there's nothing I can do but own it.
So, this isn't exactly what I was expecting.
No? What were you expecting?
According to the website, I was expecting an exclusive fine dining experience with elegant atmosphere, incredible food, and romantic ambiance.
Amy looked back at the building, which somehow looked even worse now that they were really focusing on it. Her eyebrow was still raised.
And instead you got…
What appears to be a health code violation in building form, possibly also a crime scene waiting to happen.
Did you actually research this place before making a reservation?
I may have been more focused on the surprise aspect than the actual vetting aspect. The website looked legitimate. It had photos and reviews and everything.
Ty Borden, did you just drive me an hour and a half to a scam restaurant in the middle of nowhere?
It would appear so. Yes.
They sat in silence for a moment, both staring at the building. Ty was mentally calculating how fast he could turn the truck around and drive them back to civilization, maybe find an actual restaurant in Calgary, salvage something from this disaster. But before he could suggest that, Amy did something completely unexpected. She started to laugh. Not a polite chuckle or a forced giggle to make him feel better. A real, genuine, from-the-belly laugh that filled the truck and made her eyes water. She laughed until she was gasping, until she was holding her sides, until Ty couldn't help but join in, even though he was laughing at his own spectacular failure.
Only you could try to do something romantic and end up at what looks like the setting for a murder mystery dinner theater. Except without the theater. Or the dinner. Just the murder.
I'm so sorry. I wanted to give you a perfect evening, something special, something that would make you happy and help you forget about grief and loss for a few hours.
Amy finally got control of her laughter, wiping tears from her eyes. Whether from laughing or something else, Ty couldn't quite tell. She turned to look at him, her eyes still dancing with amusement, but also something softer. Something that looked like love and affection and appreciation for the effort, even if the execution had failed miserably.
Ty, this is the first time I've laughed, really laughed since Dad died. This disaster of a surprise is already more special than any fancy dinner could have been.
Really?
Really? Although I have to know what's the plan now. Are we actually going in there? Because I'm fairly certain that building is held together entirely by questionable decisions and health code violations.
They both looked at the building again. The door looked like it might fall off its hinges if you pulled too hard. The windows were grimy and the lighting inside was dim and flickering. One of the cars in the parking lot had what looked like duct tape holding a side mirror on. The whole place radiated bad idea with an intensity that was almost impressive.
I mean, I did pay for a reservation. Quite a bit of money, actually.
You paid money for this?
Significant money. Money we probably shouldn't have spent given that we're living in a cabin and rebuilding our entire home from ashes.
Oh, Ty.
She started laughing again, and Ty joined her, both of them sitting in the truck in the middle of nowhere, laughing at the absolute disaster his romantic surprise had become. And somehow, in that moment, it was perfect. Not the perfection Ty had planned, not the elegant evening he'd imagined, but perfect in its own chaotic, ridiculous, utterly them kind of way. Because Amy was laughing, really laughing. The grief and exhaustion that had been weighing her down for days had lifted, at least temporarily, replaced by genuine amusement and joy. And that had been the whole point, hadn't it? To make her happy, to give her a break from the heavy emotions that had consumed her since Tim's death. Mission accomplished, just not in the way he'd intended.
So, should we go in? See if it's as bad on the inside as it looks on the outside?
Or we could cut our losses, turn around, and find actual food somewhere in Calgary on the way home.
That's probably the smart choice.
But
But we drove all this way, and I'm morbidly curious now. And maybe it's better inside, maybe the outside is just rustic?
rustic, that's one word for it.
What's the worst that could happen?
Food poisoning, robbery, discovering this is actually a front for some kind of illegal operation, getting murdered, take your pick.
When you put it that way,
They looked at each other, and Ty saw the exact moment when Amy made a decision. She grinned, the same kind of reckless, adventurous grin she'd had when they were younger, when they used to get into trouble together, when life was simpler and less weighed down by tragedy.
Let's do it. Let's go in. We're already here. Might as well see just how bad it is. Plus, this way we'll have a story to tell. Remember that time Ty got scammed by a fake restaurant website and took me to the middle of nowhere?
that's going to be a fun story for the rest of our lives, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This is going in the family history. Right up there with remember that time Ty proposed in a barn during a thunderstorm, and remember that time Ty came back from the dead.
At least I'm consistent in creating memorable moments.
That's one way to put it.
They sat for another moment, looking at the questionable building, the barren landscape, the complete disaster of the situation. And then, with a sense of adventure mixed with resignation, they opened the truck doors and stepped out into the night. That concludes today's episode of Heartland. Ty's well-intentioned plan to cheer Amy up with a fancy romantic dinner has spectacularly backfired. Instead of an elegant Calgary restaurant with sophisticated ambiance and incredible food, he's brought her to what appears to be the Alberta equivalent of a scam operation in the middle of nowhere. The building looks abandoned, the location is isolated, and everything about the situation screams bad decision. But instead of being angry or disappointed, Amy is laughing, really laughing, for the first time since Tim's death. Because sometimes joy doesn't come from perfect plans executed flawlessly. Sometimes it comes from spectacular failures shared with the person you love most. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't a fancy dinner at all. Sometimes it's just the reminder that even when everything goes wrong, you can still laugh together. Even when life has been impossibly hard, you can still find moments of absurd humor. Even when grief feels overwhelming, love can still make you smile. But the big question remains, what happens when they actually go inside? Is it as bad as it looks, or somehow even worse? Will they find actual food, or just more evidence that Ty got completely scammed? Will this disastrous evening somehow turn into a memory they'll treasure, or will it just be a cautionary tale about vetting restaurants before making reservations? Join us next time to find out what Amy and Ty discover inside the Sterling Estate restaurant and whether Ty's failed surprise can somehow turn into something memorable after all. Will they actually eat there or cut their losses and run? Will they encounter other unsuspecting victims of the scam? Will this become a story they laugh about for years, or one they try to forget? If you enjoyed this lighter episode after the heavy emotional weight of recent chapters, please like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments, have you ever had a date or surprise go spectacularly wrong? How did you handle it? Did you laugh about it, or was it a complete disaster? We'd love to hear your stories of plans gone wrong and how you made the best of them. Until next time, this is Western Flavors.